crack, guys? Welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be doing my May TBR. I don't usually do TBRs. I only do TBRs when there's a certain theme around it. Like my last TBR I did was in November, and that was because I was picking my TBR from a mug. And then I think the previous one I did before that was the year before that, and that was the books that I wanted to read during the summer. So I don't typically do TBRs for each month because I am such a mood reader. Half the time I go into a month not knowing what books I want to read at all. Sometimes I read a book that I bought like 2 years ago or a book that I bought that week. It just depends. So in May I'm actually dedicating this to being a fangirl. All of the books that I'm about to show you are books that I want to read because I am a total and utter fangirl. As you can probably tell by my Captain America Mickey Mouse ears and my necklaces that you probably can't really see, but these are replicas of the necklaces that Scarlet Witch wears in Captain America Civil War at the start of that. I'm all fangirled out. I am living for it. I'm loving it. I am digging these ears. I am so obsessed. So obsessed. If I had the balls to and my brother would let me, I would wear these to watch Avengers Endgame again. I have watched it. I have so many feelings about it, and I wish I had people around me so that I can actually discuss it. And I need to talk about it. But we're not discussing Endgame in this video. We are discussing all of the books that I'm going to be reading in May. So let's dive in. Some of my friends that might be watching this video might think an obvious choice would be Born with Teeth by Kate Mulgrew. Nope, not going to be reading this month because I'm going to be reading it at the end of April. So by the time this video goes up, I will have already read this. I love reading this on her birthday. In that same vein, the first book on this list for Fangirl May TBR is How to Forget a Daughter's Memoir by Kate Mulgrew. This is her second memoir. It is coming out later in May, but is top of my priorities. Once that thing is out and in my hands, I will be reading it. Regardless of what book I'm reading at the time, I will be reading it. This follows her mother and her father more so than mentioned in Born with Teeth. This is all about how she cared for her mother in her stages of Alzheimer's and her eventual passing, and her father's diagnosis with cancer, and how she cared for her parents and moved back to Iowa to care for them, and just really opening up about that, because in Born with Teeth that was never mentioned. It was mentioned very briefly towards the end of the book, and I thought that was rather strange. And then when I found out that there was going to be a second memoir, it all clicked. So I will be reading that as soon as humanly possible when it gets here. May is also the birth month of Katharine Hepburn, so I want to read Kate by William J. Mann. I have had this book since I was 21. It was a present from my parents. I actually got quite a distance into it because my bookmark is still in it and it was there. This book looks like it's going to be pretty long. It's actually not. It's only about 500-ish pages, considering that pretty much this amount of the book are notes and citations and an index and everything, so I only have like that much to read realistically, and that's not much. When I first read this, I absolutely loved learning all about Katharine Hepburn. This deals from her in infancy right up to her passing. I cannot wait to read it again and discover everything that I loved all about Katharine Hepburn. I also have Kate Remembered, Katharine Hepburn, a personal biography by A. Scott Berg. This is a much shorter biography compared to the one by William J. Mann, but I just wanted another biography of Katharine Hepburn because you can never have too many of them. You can never learn enough about her. I personally can't learn enough about her. Very excited to read this one. I have another Katharine Hepburn biography, and that is The Real Kate, personal biography of Katharine Hepburn by Charlotte Chandler. You cannot have enough biographies. You just really cannot, of your favorite people. When biographies and more memoirs come out by Kate Mulgrew, I will be snapping those guys up because they are my favorites. And like, Kate Mulgrew has been likened to Katharine Hepburn throughout her life. There are like some images where you're just like, is that Kate Mulgrew or Katharine Hepburn? Cannot wait to read this one as well. And the last Katharine Hepburn book in this TBR is this life commemoration book all about Katharine Hepburn. This is pretty much just a picture book with just a couple of paragraphs here and there scattered throughout it, so it's going to be a very quick read, but it has an ISBN code at the back, so Goodreads will have it and it will count towards my Goodreads goal. I am not above cheating. Just look at her. Isn't she perfect? And these are actually her sisters. Those were her sisters. I also have a couple of Star Trek books that I want to read because Star Trek Voyager is my favorite television series of all time. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. A lot of people have a lot of problems with Voyager. I personally do not. It is my favorite television show of all time. Favorite Star Trek incarnation. I just love it. So the first Star Trek book on my May TBR is Mosaic by Jerry Taylor. This book is all about Captain Katharine Janeway. Every single page is about Captain Janeway. She's my favourite. Mosaic is pretty much the life story of Katharine Janeway from her teenage years to her academy days to her first postings and to her eventual captaincy of Voyager. A lot of it is alluded to in the series, which is what I love, and especially because it's written by Jerry Taylor. She was one of the showrunners and she was one of the executive producers, and she wrote a lot of episodes. She wrote Coda, which is one of my favorite episodes of all time of Voyager. Jerry Taylor knows Janeway. She knows her inside and out. So that's why I love reading Voyager books by Jerry Taylor, because they're pretty much gospel. I've already read this book. I read this book years ago. I think I read it when I was like 12, 13, just when I was getting into Voyager. I have no idea where my original copy is. I got this one off of eBay. This is a hardback cover. I am in love with it. I love this design where you have Janeway in her captain's uniform and then Janeway in her cadet's uniform. I just love it. I loved this book when I first read it, and I'm going to love it even more again now. I also want to read the Gateways books. Now, the Gateways books in Star Trek are a collection of books that are from each incarnation. There's one for Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. There's one for a few of the offshoot series that have just been for the books alone. I read the Deep Space Nine one and the Voyager one years ago and loved them, but I couldn't get my hands on the book that followed everything because they all end up on cliffhangers, because in each incarnation they all encounter a gateway, which is pretty much like a Stargate. And at the end of each book, one of the characters goes through one. I think at the end of Next Generation, I think Picard went through it. At the end of the Deep Space Nine one, Colonel Kira went through hers. Voyager, Captain Janeway went through hers. So I want to reread the Deep Space Nine one and the Voyager one because I think I love them the most, and then get on to What Lies Beyond, which is the book that then wraps everything up, which I think is a collection of short stories that deals with each character after they've stepped through the gateway. So this is quite an ambitious TBR. I'm well aware of it. I know that I'm not going to get to every single one of these books because like some of them are quite long, some of them are a bit shorter. I don't mind. I'll just run them into June. But another book on this TBR is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I first started reading this a couple of years ago because Jane Seymour plays Kathy in an adaptation of it. It was a mini-series that I watched a couple of years ago and loved it. I loved Jane Seymour as Kathy. She did an incredible job. It was like a role I had never seen Jane Seymour tackle before. Completely in the antithesis of Dr. Michaela Quinn. Kathy's like freaking psycho. I started reading this and then I put it down. My bookmark is still in here. It is here on page 217. I had this thing years ago when I would just like start reading a book and then put it down for like no reason. It was stupid because I was loving this. I am determined to finish this because I just love Kathy so much. She's one of my favourite literary female characters, and so I'm just excited to jump back into this and just fall back in love with Kathy. And the last book on my Fangirl May TBR is probably the one that's the most reaching in this list because it's one that I'm not necessarily a fangirl of, but it's one that I definitely want to get to because I am a fan of the series. And that is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, if you didn't know. Like everybody else, I loved the movies and I fell in love with the character of Arwen, played by Liv Tyler. I adored her. Viggo Mortensen, oh my goodness. I think I was probably the only person in the world that wasn't obsessed with Legolas. So I'm excited to actually sit down and read The Fellowship of the Ring. As I said, it is the one that's the most reaching on this TBR. I'm not the biggest fan of the movies. I will watch them if they're on TV. I will have them on in the background. But yeah, this is all my Fangirl TBR. So there you have it, guys. Those are all of the books on my Fangirl TBR for May. I pretty much just wanted to just read fangirly books in May, mostly because it was the birth month of Katharine Hepburn. I adore Katharine Hepburn. I love all of her movies, and it also coincides with the release of Kate Mulgrew's second memoir, Hard to Forget. So I just decided, you know, make it a fangirly month. Read all the Voyager books that I want, read all the Katharine Hepburn books, read Kate Mulgrew's new memoir, and just soak it all up. And it gave me an excuse to wear these in a video. I probably will be wearing these in videos in the future because I'm obsessed. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if there are books that you would read because you are a fangirl or fanboy. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!